Last summer I taught an undergraduate level 4 philosophy of mind course to 20 level 3 philosophy students of mixed ability at a local sixth form college. My aim was to introduce them to the main concepts in philosophy of mind by focusing on teaching them the fundamental principles of metaphysics that they would need to understand this. I realised that metaphysics could therefore become a threshold concept for them. However, due to the varied academic abilities of the students and the conceptual difficulty of the subject, I knew that I had to be imaginative in the way I designed the course to fully engage the less academic students and transform their learning. And so I designed my teaching sessions to try and engage their participation in their learning by trying to make it fun through the use of starter exercises, quizzes, problem-solving exercises and breakout activities that required them to move around the room to complete tasks. Now that I've been introduced to the various theoretical frameworks employed on this course to evaluate student learning, and with my new understanding of the tools of critical reflection, I'm able to look back at the way I designed the course with a different pair of eyes. Using Brookfield's autobiographical lens, I now understand that as it was a mixed ability class, I needed to first be able to assess their levels of prior knowledge and understanding using constructivist theory, and then consider how I could improve the design of the course to refine my teaching of the threshold concept, as you can see here, to get them through this section, which the threshold concept being the ontology of philosophy of mind, by more clearly setting out the structure or grammar of the ontology with the aim of encouraging the deeper approach to learning. Luckily, as I'm teaching this course again this summer, I will now design formative assessments to help students through the difficult epistemological transition here, through this liminal space out the other side, where hopefully they'll be able to understand the major concepts in metaphysics to apply them to philosophy of mind. And I'll do this by hopefully acknowledging students' varied patterns of engagement with the course and their different learning styles that correspond with surface and deep learning. Because I have a quote here, as Dr. Isis Brooke has said, if our teaching of threshold concepts is to deliver the promise of providing transformative learning, we need to be able to assess how effective this has been. And I would add to this, give appropriate feedback to the students on their formative assessment, and then further reflection at the design stage to aim for constructive alignment between learning and teaching activities and assessment to achieve the learning outcomes. I recently asked several of the students for their views of their experience of the design and delivery of the course. I asked them, how easy was it for you to access the learning? Did the course support your different learning styles and abilities? Did you feel there was a supportive learning environment? If not, how could I improve the design and delivery of the course to do so? The feedback I received from the students was interesting and not all what I expected. To simplify, I'm going to divide the responses from students into two categories as follows. Those who demonstrated surface learning were engaged by the quick games and quizzes and like my cartoons, which tried to represent the principal metaphysical problems in visual form. The cartoons personified Descartes and gave a visual explanation of the concepts, which made it easier for them to grasp the essential metaphysical concepts of dualism. There are a few of these just to give you a flavour of what I was doing. So going through materialism and eliminative materialism, just to try and simplify it because it's pretty fiendishly complicated. So I concluded that these learners liked this visual approach, which was great. The feedback I received from the students who demonstrated the deeper learning suggested that they needed more time to reflect and think about the topics we covered each session. They would also have benefited from a greater number of extension exercises to consolidate their understanding. These learners enjoyed the ontology challenge flowchart puzzle and asked for the more difficult one. By the way, the other group of learners found this to be quite a difficult exercise. The students who showed evidence of deeper learning styles, they liked this ontology challenge because it provided a comprehensive structure, a detailed map of the ontology, which enabled them to understand the relationships between the different metaphysical concepts. So, in conclusion, overall, the students felt there was a supportive learning environment, which was reassuring. The surface learners weren't alienated, as I thought they might be, and they found the course interesting, although they did struggle at times, particularly when trying to make sense of the bigger picture. The deeper learners wanted to learn more and have greater levels of discussion, which I would like to incorporate next time I run this show. They'd also like more time to reflect and more extension exercises. The challenge now, of course, is to get the balance right to support all learning styles. By making use of Brookfield's lenses, the students' eyes, I can also reflect on their feedback to think about how I can incorporate it to provide a more inclusive and supportive learning environment to ultimately achieve deeper learning. To put student support into a critical framework, one can look to Biggs' 1988 3Ps model for understanding student learning, where Presage accounts for the individual student style of learning, their prior knowledge and academic ability. Process looks at the educational setting, course structure, curriculum design, teaching style and assessment, and the interaction between the two, Presage and Process, i.e. the interaction between the student and the task, is a dynamic system that produces a product which is the learning outcome, hopefully the one you want. So how would I use Biggs' framework? Based on student feedback, I would focus on developing student-peer collaboration in problem-solving exercises, perhaps the ontology challenge that we just looked at, perhaps by pairing students of different learning styles and abilities. And I think this would help the students who found using the jargon, passing through this threshold here, this epistemological threshold, quite difficult. To help design a supportive and inclusive multimodal learning environment, I would also be guided by the sets of practices and standards from the Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, educational framework. Finally, using Gibbs' reflective cycle, I've thought about what I need to do to make further improvements in my teaching practice. On reflecting on my experience of working on this presentation, particularly when trying to evaluate student feedback and how I can best incorporate this, I've realised that I need to embed critical reflection into the design of my courses from the start, which will then help me design formative and summative assessments which are better suited to students' needs, to supporting them really. I also need to know that I need some help with improving my feedback and assessment skills. Thank you very much. Here are my references, and that's the end.